Good evening, everyone. I'm Ian James Wright from Washington, D.C., and you're listening to the Alphabetical Fugazi, the only podcast that devotes an episode each to discussing every song in the band's catalog, from Fuga A to Fuga Z. Joining me today to discuss Last Chance for a Slow Dance from 1993's In on the Killtaker is Doug McGregor, who has played drums with the Constantines and City and Colour and John K. Samson. Doug, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good. Thanks, Ian. Well, thanks for having me.
It's very nice to have you. First question, Doug, to you as the drummer for the Constantines. Please tell me and the listeners, how do you count the song "Shine a Light"?
Oh, you know what? I never really thought about it until I guess years ago after that record came out, and someone asked. And you mean like the timing in the verse, right?
Yeah, it's so unpredictable to me. I can never remember when the one is.
It's just I always just played along to the guitar line, but when you count it out, it's like I haven't listened to it in a while. It's like the one phrase is 10 beats, and the one phrase is the next part is 11.
I see. Okay.
So I don't know what that timing is, but it's a 10 beat phrase and an 11 beat phrase. But I never really knew until someone asked me, and I had to listen. Out, but it's a 10 and an 11. So however you would break that down to write it for sheet music, I don't know, but it's a 10 and an 11. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Luckily, it's just hats and bass drums. So there's nothing fancy going on. Yeah.
All right. I'm glad you don't seem like that much more clued into it than I am, because I was No, I just remember when that line came up, we just played a lot. It took a while, but I never really counted it. It kind of sang it in your head. Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, it's a cool little jam.
Yeah, thank you.
So, it's interesting. You guys in the Constantines got started pretty much as Fugazi were coming to the end of their career. I guess you formed a couple of years before that. Obviously, you're a fan. Were they an influence on all of you, and did that influence manifest in the music in a way that you can articulate, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. We were all fans. In fact, the first four members, which would be, before Will joined, which would be myself and Bry, the singer and guitar player, and Steve, singer guitar player, Dallas. We kind of were involved in like the Southern Ontario post-punk hardcore scene, and so we kind of knew each other from that way. And I guess, for lack of a better term, Fugazi would be one of like the flagship bands, I guess, of a kind of semi-autonomous, movement of music in the 90s there, or at least my experience was the 90s, because I'm too young to know about their 80s time.
Right.
Or have experienced it. Yeah. So yeah, they were a huge influence. For me, Brendan Canty was a very big influence on the way I played. And I know Joe Lally was for Dallas, and I know the way that they interacted with each other very much influenced the way we played, because, we're punks, but we were listening at the time, starting to listen to much like they were, not because of it, but we're listening to reggae and R&B and funk and soul and stuff. And Dallas and I tried to, in our own way, emulate the kind of the way those rhythm sections would lock together and play off each other, much the same as Joe Lally and Brendan Canty would.
Do you remember when you first got into Fugazi and how they came into your life?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. It was like I went to elementary school, and towards the end, I was a metalhead, right? So I discovered Metallica and Slayer, and you kind of trip and fall down this hole, and the next thing you know, there's Exodus, and there's Celtic Frost, and that was the first time I'd ever kind of stumbled under underground rock music. And so I started high school in 1991, and that September of 91, you're 14, and that's when Nevermind was released. And I remember my high school bandmates and I saw that Smells Like Teen Spirit video. They're like, "What was that?"
Yeah.
So we got to sound like that. And, Slayer's too hard anyhow for us to play. So that kind of, you kind of opened up to a whole other underground. So, you're hearing Sonic Youth and it's kind of weird because like literally in my life, you're heading into a whole new world of it being high school, right? You know, you're not a big high school, but 1,000 students. And so you enter that and Nevermind comes out. So the culture around us is changing fast. And then you go home for Christmas. And by the time we start the second semester, the Soviet Union's gone. So it's a whole new world in that way. And in high school, I met Bry Webb, who was the singer and guitar player in Constantine. So we became friends. This would be probably 93. He passes me a Walkman and says, you should listen to this. I think we should play this, try covering this. And it was Shut the Door by Fugazi. And I'd never heard anything like that. It was just so different from Nirvana and Mudhoney. It was still like loud guitar, but the approach was so different to me. Probably the emphasis on rhythm, like the stop and start, and the fact that they were getting tones out of a guitar that I'd never really heard before.
Yeah, it's an amazing song, and I felt the same way. I think I've said before, that's probably the Fugazi song that I would just, in high school, just sit in my room and try to play along with, because, yeah, there's something really entrancing about it. As a composed piece and as a jam piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's funny because I think that's the first song I played along to. And I believe I made a dub of Repeater, and I was, playing along to Shut the Door. And you talk about influence. I think that was probably the first time I was really playing like 16ths on the hi-hat,
right,
like he did, and opening and closing the hats in the way that he did, which wasn't just close them in the verse and open them wide in the chorus. So yeah, listening to that and so Repeater was the first record and incidentally, when he passed it to me and I was looking at the cassette, I recognized it because I was like, oh, this is the spine of the cassette that always stuck out to me because it was in a stack of cassettes behind the counter of this like really small skate shop in London, Ontario. So when I went there to buy I never skated, but you go there to buy Vans shoes, and there's that little spine always stuck out to me. I was like, what's that? And then finally hearing it, I was like, it was like, it was a pretty watershed moment for me personally, musically.
Nice. And this was in the early 90s sometime before?
I would say, late 93. Late 93. Yeah.
So Killtaker was probably pretty fresh at that time, huh?
I don't even know if, what, I don't think it was out yet. Because I'm trying to think, because that came out. When did that come out? The end of...
that was in summer 93.
Okay, yeah. So this would be like... so this would be just a couple months. So what, Steady Die would have been out. Yeah, so... and then I got the first EP, the 6 on cassette, of course. It was more pragmatic for a 45-minute bus ride to and from school.
Yeah.
Because the Discman always skipped. So...
yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that I know that when I first popped that cassette in, I listened to Waiting Room 3 times in a row before I got to the second song, because I just kept rewinding it. What was that? Even having heard Repeater, there was nothing quite on it. There wasn't a chorus quite as anthemic, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
There's some really good hooks on Repeater, but nothing quite as, anthemic, I guess.
Yeah, you really just brought back some memories of listening to a Discman on the school bus and trying to get it not to skip, and then and then when a new Discman would come out with 5-second skip protection, everyone was like, "Whoa!" Yeah, man, good times.
Yeah.
You share a pair of earbuds with friends.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh man, these are the memories that make me feel old at this point.
I know.
Well, as we can see, it set you on a probably helped change your life. I don't know if you had decided like I'm gonna be a musician by that point, but
No, I never decided to be a musician. I just always wanted to play music. I knew I always wanted to be in a band. It seemed absurd to me, the idea that you could actually do it. Even with the example of punk rock and Fugazi, it seemed like something for other people.
And did you get a chance to see them live at any point?
Yeah, actually, I got to see them live twice. And actually, in preparation for this, I actually downloaded the 2 shows I saw. They were on the End Hits tour, and they were only a couple months apart in '98.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw them in Detroit at the State Theater.
Oh, okay.
I'm friends with Vish, and I listened to the episode you did, and I know he was at that show.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit.
Yes, and he was friends with this guy Aaron Riches, who was older. He was from the same punk scene, Vish and Aaron, and Aaron Riches was friends with those guys because he booked some shows for them, and they were from like Guelph, Cambridge area, which is about London. For people at home, London, Ontario is like it's 2 hours south of Toronto, Ontario, and 2 hours north of Detroit. It's right on the middle.
Right.
So we'd often go to Detroit for shows, and Vish and Aaron were from about an hour closer to Toronto. But anyways, we knew those guys, and I remember standing in the audience and looking up, and there's Vish, side stage. Actually, he was with Steve and Dallas, who would later, we would join a band with Constantine's, and I'm like, look at those guys, they're on stage, But I was so stoked to see them in this beautiful theater. I still have this ticket stub somewhere, but I didn't dig through to find it. I know it was $6 because there was a $1 restoration fee.
Yeah.
For this.
I'm looking at the Fugazi Live Series page now. There's a picture of the ticket stub, and yeah, you're exactly right. There's a 75-cent restoration fee. Yes,
I saw that earlier, and I laughed because mine says $1 because it's probably Canadian.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, it's this beautiful Art Deco theater. So, in fact, have you ever seen the movie Out of Sight? It's George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez.
I have not seen that.
It's I believe it's a Steven Soderbergh movie, and it's based on an Elmore Leonard novel. But there's a scene where they go to a boxing match, and that takes place in the State Theater where this show was. The State Theater, it's since been renamed. It was bought out. It's the Fillmore now, I believe. But yeah, it's still there. Years later, I played there a couple times with City and Colour, and it was just a trip to be back in that room.
Nice. Yeah, it would be cool to play a place that I had seen Fugazi. I did that myself. Yeah. I got to play Fort Reno for one brief show.
Really?
Yeah, so that was like a rite of passage, kind of.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that show too. I remember it was also for $6. It was Blonde Redhead.
Yeah, Shellac.
Shellac, yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, and then a friend of ours, Hannah, she worked at the local the University of Western Ontario college radio station. So she was hipper to the more indie side of stuff, for lack of a better term. And we found out the Fugazi show was like an earlier show. And then just up the street on Woodward Avenue, which is, where the State Theater is, the main drag of Detroit, right up the street, there's at the Magic Stick was Calexico opening for Dirty Three.
Wow.
And I was $10, and she was like, "Please, we gotta go." And I took her. Okay, sure. And so I had my mind blown twice that day for, 5 times, I guess, for $16.
Yeah, hard to find a better way to spend $16, in my opinion, than.
Yeah. I've spent more on far worse. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So today with Doug, I'm talking about Last Chance for a Slow Dance. A couple of just fun facts about this particular episode of this podcast, it's by dint of chance. This is the second album closer in a row that we're doing. Last episode we did KYEO. And also, this show marks the beginning of the longest Guy Picciotto run of the show. This episode and the next 4 all feature Guy Picciotto on lead vocals. So join us today as we start to dig into the nigh impenetrable poetry of this enigmatic gentleman. In terms of live outings, this was first played July 28th, 1991, so it was kind of an early track from Killtaker. A little info from our friend Joe Gross's book, the resource that I always go to for In on the Killtaker songs. So he talked to Guy about this song, and apparently people early on often compared Fugazi to a band called The Ruts. Are you familiar with The Ruts, Doug?
Yes, I know The Ruts, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really, I don't think I was familiar with them at all before reading this. But I checked them out, and Guy says that he took the line "Some Lights Were Shining" from their song called "It Was Cold," because they loved the Ruts. And Guy also says that sort of just the chords for this kind of were inspired by playing around with the song "Rhiannon" by Fleetwood Mac, and just playing around with that little like A minor figure. I guess that's where he came up with the that part. There's a little oddity here that I'll say by way of introduction. There's a show online from Honolulu, November 18th, 1991, where Guy introduces this song by saying this, and this seems like it can't possibly be true. It seems like kind of BS, but this is what he says. I think it's just funny. He says, to be honest with you, I really don't know how to swim very well, and yesterday we were out just goofing around in the water, and the undertow pulled me out about 50 feet onto a sandbar, and I was on my back, and I was kind of freaked out because I didn't think I could swim back to the shore. But luckily I had my acoustic guitar with me, and I wrote a song about it. I was thinking, I may not be able to swim very well, but when I was a kid, I could slow dance pretty well. This is a song about that. End quote.
Yes, I you know what? I watched that one today because I read the same book, and they talk about how that song had been gestating since the Steady Diet days.
Right.
I found that that was pretty funny. I want to say one other thing too is this is as a side, but he was saying that, and I was thinking about that One Last Wish song from the State of the Union compilation, Buried in the Undertow.
Oh, yeah, right.
Because he's talking about the undertow, and then the very first line of this song is a metaphor for burial.
Yeah, and not only that, like burial,
being a coffin.
Yeah, and being underwater, which has come up a couple of times. Yeah.
Yes.
It's we just as we record this, the episode for I'm So Tired just came out, where Ian sings the line "dragged underneath," which raises the idea of undertow in my mind. But also, I always felt that this song was a little similar in a few ways to "Fell Destroyed," which just sort of mentions laying in water, and it has a similar feel also to me.
Yeah, I never really thought about that, but I would say this song reminds me musically in a way. It reminds me very much, in a certain sense, of Long Division, in the sense that both are very sparse, like more than other Fugazi songs, very sparse, vocally driven songs.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
It's one sparse portrait. I know, like "Shut the Door" is kind of like that. But I think in this one, I know they write their songs mostly instrumentally, but it seems in both these songs, the band kind of lays back and supports the vocals and the lyrics.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I was really going to say that especially Ian MacKaye is a real support player in this song.
Yes.
And a lot of songs, even if he's not taking center stage, he's often doing some very, very sort of Ian type of chuggy rhythm guitar.
Yes.
Whereas in this one, if you watch the clip from Instrument, it actually shows him at the end he's playing with his thumb, and that's like, he's he's trying to really play along with the bass and give this, I don't know, underpinning of this melodic figure that Guy's guitar figure moves against, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. In a way, I kind of like them both songs. Bear me out here, but it's kind of like that Sinead O'Connor video for "Nothing Compares to You." You know, it's just a sparse portrait. You know, that video is just her head.
Yeah,
and it's just the emotional changes she goes through within the song. And I feel like both those songs kind of have that in common, in a weird way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I that video hadn't come to mind. I always
okay.
That video always reminds me of Radiohead "No Surprises," too.
Okay, yeah.
Do you remember that one?
I don't know. No,
it's the one where it's just Tom York's head, and he's in some kind of fishbowl that gradually fills with water.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. That's a nice absurdist take on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that was influenced by the Sinead O'Connor video. Anyway.
Yeah.
Now we're really getting off track, but yeah, I know what you mean. Man, Ian and Joe in the song, something about it reminds me of like a string quartet, like chamber music.
I'm glad you said that, because I distinctly remember the first time I heard this song, and it's of course it's at the end of the record. The two interesting things also about this song is that for a band that's got like a crack rhythm section, it's not the bass and drums, it's Guy's guitar and the drums are doing the rhythm,
right?
And then I never noticed the first time hearing it, the line that they're playing on bass that Joe and Ian are playing the first time through, probably maybe ear fatigue, but until the end when they have it out. And you said it reminds you of a string section, and I was thinking about it. It's almost like in orchestras, they have like they'll voice certain instruments like pianissimo, so you can't hear them, but they're there until like the French horns will be pianissimo.
That's Italian for strings, very quiet, right?
Yeah. Yes. You
gotta say it, pianissimo.
Yeah. But you don't notice it until the rest of the song's gone and it's there. And then I remember going back and listening right away, and I was like, oh, it's been there the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And
yes.
I've commented before about Fugazi songs, how they do that so much, maybe not as prominently as this, but they sort of add and strip away elements to just sort of highlight what each member of the band is doing in a very fun way that I like.
Yeah.
Even though I sort of said they sounded like a string quartet, they do, like, you could definitely imagine a string quartet covering this and just the cellos playing with each other and really doing
absolutely.
That line well.
Actually that line would go well with like a bowed bass and cello. Absolutely.
But even though I say that, I always also kind of felt like at the end it sounded a little piano-esque. Something about the way that the bass is like giving you this fundamental note, and the guitar is sort of playing the same thing but with just a different tonality on top. It's got that sort of zinginess that if you play a bass note on a piano, it makes that sound. It's kind of like best of both worlds, piano and strings, and just really sounds gorgeous.
Yes, yeah, and just the tenderness. You can hear like the fingertips scraping the strings. It almost sounds like at one point too, you can hear Guy actually switch his guitar off. Like there's, I don't know if the Rickenbacker has a switch. I can't remember, but
never owned a Rickenbacker. I can't get along with how they feel, even though they look and sound so cool. You know?
Yeah. Most of my experience is from with Rickenbackers and Lemmy worshipping bassists. So yeah,
I'm
for
sure
good reasons. Okay.
I'm sure if I actually owned one, I would learn to get along with it because they're really cool. But man, it's expensive too. So
yeah,
it's not one that I'm just gonna plunk down the money on and hope that I learn to love.
Yeah.
It's that it really shows off that Rickenbacker tone that Guy is working with, and I love it's really on the edge of breakup for the verses in this song in a great way. You know, like the gentler notes are clean, and the ones he hits a little harder just have that hair on it. It's just right in that sweet spot.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed too is lyrically, I never really noticed this till I kind of wrote them down But the lyric the scheme has like a AAB pattern very loosely. It seems like there's internal rhymes within the line, like coffin inside your coffin, and warning, the threat of morning.
Yeah.
Some lights were shining, not for seeing. There's like an AAB kind of very loosely adhered to, but nonetheless there, which is, I think, very clever.
Yeah, it's not strict, is it? Right? Because
no.
yeah, it's sort of like the first one is AABC, and like there are a couple of those, but then the flare fakes a flower. That's the two middle lines rhyme with each other. And the same with pull stalls, uncut but clotted. When you had thought it would force a flow. So that's like the second and third lines rhyme with each other. So he's really sort of playing around with it all over the place there.
Yeah, he's very much playing with with the words here, I think, because like he's got the homophone here with coffin and coffin. Flare fakes a flower, which is hard enough to just say, let them sing.
Absolutely,
you got the alliteration.
That's a tongue twister.
The way he yells "shot, shot," it sounds like the word he's talking about. Onomatopoeia, that's called, I believe, right? So it's got all these tricks of language in it.
And also when he sings early in the song, "You'll be leaving the way you came," and when that comes back later, he says, "You believe in the way you came."
Yes, that too. Yes.
Yeah. So it always struck me as almost stream of consciousness poetry in that way. And if whether or not I'm successful at finding a unified meaning, very impressionistic, and I don't know, it leaves you more with a feeling than with a concept to me.
Absolutely. It's definitely one of those lyrics that's kind of a Rorschach test. In a way, it's very vague, and I guess everyone's going to take something out of it.
Yeah, I was really wrestling with it. I mean, spoiler alert, I don't have an overarching theory about Last Chance for a Slow Dance and what it means. But the couple of things that came up to me were it's possibly about some kind of interpersonal difficulties of communication, where Guy says, for example, the part where he's saying, inside you're breathing, too numb for asking, so I'll leave it outside your door. Like somebody is either unable or unwilling. Later on, it's like too shy for asking. Unable or unwilling to ask for something, but the other party wants to give it anyway, while leaving their privacy unencroached upon.
Yes, I had the same feeling, like whether it's trying to... some friend that has a barrier up, or there's a barrier between them. Mm-hmm. And so, honestly, I wonder if if it's two separate people.
Yeah.
Because the person who's breathing and numb for asking and will be leaving in the second verse is needing but too shy for asking.
That's interesting.
And would believe it reminds me in a weird way of William Faulkner. In some of his novels, the person, the narrator, will switch perspectives in time and place, particularly in like Sound and the Fury. And the clue to that they've changed time and place is the way that they address the person. So I don't know if it's two people or if it's one person at two different times. It seems like he's addressing someone close to him, but there's a barrier, is my interpretation.
That's a great thought. It hadn't occurred to me, but now that I look at it that way, it feels like the first verse is... So in the first verse, there's a lot of maybe death-adjacent language, right?
Yes.
Because, of course, we have the coffin. You're breathing too numb for asking, as if somebody is dreadfully ill, warning the threat of morning that just extends you another day, like somebody who's on the brink of death, and you'll be leaving the way you came. So, and whereas the second verse reminds me, has always given me somewhat of a feeling of unrequited love, some kind of timid teenage romance kind of thing.
Yeah, it seems that the second verse is definitely more positive than the first. Yeah. There's something, I know from that the Joe Gross book we're referencing. He talks about how "Rend It" is basically a relationship song.
Right.
This could be a relationship song. It could be a friend. It could be a girlfriend. I don't know.
Yeah, I think if we read it that way, like, so Flair fakes a flower, a burnt out shower no one can see. It's like some kind of hidden secret passion for somebody else.
Yeah.
That, by the way, just as a brief tangent, the image of like equating fire with flower, it's reminiscent of there's a pretty famous sonnet by Pablo Neruda, whereas the line is, "The arrow of carnations the fire shoots off." So hat tip to Neruda, whom I don't think I've mentioned so far in this podcast, but he's a good one. Shout out to Chile.
You know what? I just got a book of his poetry from a friend of mine. She loaned it to me.
Oh, happy Valentine's Day! We are recording on Valentine's Day, by the way.
This is 8 months ago, though. Which was it was like, you know, a COVID lockdown book exchange.
Right.
Which reminds me too, it's really hard not to look at the first bit of this, the first lyrics here. Coughing inside your coffin, I will leave it at your door, warning the threat of morning that it just extends another day that seems so much like this Groundhog Day we've been in, and like it could be a postman or your Uber Eats guy. You know, it's impossible because, you know, this is, you know, hit us all like a sledgehammer every day. Well, metaphorically, but it kind of feels that way. I know that's not what it's about, but you know, good writing, it can apply to many things, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember as I was looking at the lyrics, I was like, oh my God, this looks like Lockdown. I know it's not, but yeah.
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say the little stanza, "Pulse stalls uncut but clotted when you had thought it would force a flow," sort of like freezing up when you. It just, now that I'm on this track, I keep thinking of this hidden romance, like, you know, trying to get up your nerve to make a move, but you just can't bring yourself to go and talk to the person that you're interested in.
Yeah. That's just I don't know what that means, but it's just a beautiful line, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And did you notice too, if you look at, you brought the Hawaii show, that there's less lyrics. He's clearly working it out.
That's true, right?
He just kind of like the first verse is basically like half as many, where he repeats himself, and then the second verse he repeats the Flair fakes a flower part is twice, and the coughing in your coffin line, although he says waiting the first time around in the first verse, is done twice. So he's clearly, it's a work in progress. That I looked at a performance in DC in '92, and the lyrics there are as they are on the album. So he clearly had worked it out by then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's they're amazing lyrics in a way. So one of my embarrassing memories, when I went to college, you know, freshman year, you know, you get there first time, and on our hall they had a bulletin board, like a little cork board, fabric covered type thing on everybody's door. And they kind of had it set up with your name, but then after that, you were encouraged to, you know, customize it any way you want, do whatever you want. I like typed the lyrics to this song, and I printed them out, and that was on my bulletin board. And like looking back, it's like so, you know, geeky and pretentious to do, but I did it, and I'm fessing up to it right now on the Alphabetical Fugazi.
Well, I almost put a Rites of Spring lyric in my high school grad caption, but I didn't do it at the end of the day. I just left my like signature. So yeah, peas in a pod. Yeah.
Speaking of the ways that it was done differently early on and done differently live, I was going to bring up something about the drums, but it occurs to me that we haven't really said much about the drums. So, I mean, let me give that to you first as the professional drummist among the two of us.
Okay.
Do you have anything to say about the beat going on here?
Well, let me just gather my thoughts here. again, going back to earlier, like the way he uses the 16ths he's playing on the hats. I remember listening to that, and that it's almost like a take on the what's it called? It's almost a take on the what's the Be My Baby Ronettes beat.
I literally have that in my notes that I'm looking at right now because because exactly what I was going to say before I threw it to you is in live versions, also during the Pulse Stalls stanza, like they would drop out everything, and then it would just be sort of Brendan doing his thing, and he would simplify the drum beat to exactly that "Be My Baby" beat. Like, boom, boom, boom.
Is that the one at Hamburg? I watched one Hamburg '99, and I noticed they did that, but I think maybe they kept the Ian and Joe kept playing.
Oh yeah, it might have. Maybe Ian and Joe do keep playing, but I think they did that almost every time because I'm 99% sure they do that on the instrument version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I just didn't catch that, but okay. That on that instrument one, I did notice that as time wore on, they slowed the song down.
Interesting.
Which is like the Hamburg one for sure, and it's even more effective, I think. And it's one thing to. It's not often a band plays their songs slower live, but I guess it's just testament to they're always growing, and they just maybe I don't know if it was just that's the way they did it that day, or they just kind of noticed if they slowed it down, it had more power.
I respect any band that can slow a song down because, like, it feels like every band I've been in, we just unintentionally speed up the more we play a song.
Oh yeah, that's a universal thing, I think. There's exceptions to every rule. Yeah.
But the drum beat overall, this had never occurred to me before because I always really liked this song, but listening to it like with a really careful ear, it occurred to me like, is this drum part too busy for this song? Like it is. I feel like if I were a drummer, which I'm not, and somebody came to me with this music, I would do something more laid back. But Brendan's really like making it, I don't know, a little dancey, a little sassy.
Yeah, I don't know. I get maybe he I think maybe he does that because the guitar line that Guy is playing is like what we said is it's based on Rhiannon, but that's Rhiannon's a faster song, but there the pulse of the guitar is eighth notes, and
right.
Here the song's slower, but the pulse of the guitar notes is also 16ths.
And also, this is the guitar part here is so much more fluid than Rhiannon, which is much more like dun 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 dun.
Yeah. But I wonder if because he felt he had so much more space because of what Joe and Ian were doing.
Yeah. I'm sure I regret saying too busy because I do love it. Like maybe I'm saying just the kind of thing like if you were called in as a session musician, they'd be like, whoa, tone it down, man. This is a chill song.
Yeah. Well, we've all heard that. Yeah. But like you said earlier, though, he did simplify it seems as time goes on. I even though they were working them out live clearly before they recorded it, sometimes it just takes you a while to kind of wrap your head around your own songs.
Yeah, I think that's true for sure. Like sometimes you don't understand what really makes a song good until you've been working at it for a while.
Yeah,
putting things in, but also taking things away. I think.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
We don't need that third guitar solo.
Yeah.
I'm trying to circle back to see if I can figure out like an overarching theme of this, and I think what I'm leaning toward now is like taking your idea about each verse being about somebody different. Like I can almost imagine that this is something that would happen during, I don't know, very impressionistic time in a person's life when they're young. Like somebody old, like a grandparent, is dying, but at the same time, like their emotions are torn in so many different ways because they're obsessed with some kind of new young love that's happening. So it's almost the first verse is dedicated to the former, the second verse dedicated to the latter.
I don't know. Yeah, like it's like it could be that. It could be the same person in two different times of their life, or I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great theory too. Like it's like a flashback to when this dying person was younger and vital. And
yeah. But then again, in that book, I recently read the on the Killtaker book, and they talk about public witness program, and
right.
And Guy's like, pure science fiction. And I was like, yeah. You ever seen The Road Warrior?
That was the sequel to Mad Max, right?
Yeah, the sequel.
Yeah, I did see that. I never saw the first one.
Okay, so yeah, the sequel. Yeah, so there's a part where Mad Max has abducted the gyro captain. He's taking him hostage with a double-barrel shotgun to find out where the gasoline is, and later on, he gets a couple of shotgun shells, so he finally loads the gun, and the gyro captain goes, all this time, and that's how that's the image that came to my head when I found out it was pure science fiction. I was like, all this time, but again, in today's world, what that song's about is not really science fiction anymore.
Yeah, it's one of Fugazi's famously prescient songs.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of the filmed show from Instrument before, where they play this, I gotta say, like, in my long and unremarkable history of pretty much unbroken heterosexuality, like that may be the most attracted I've ever been to another man. Like, Guy is real sexy in that performance, I gotta say.
Yeah.
He's really feeling it, looking good, playing his heart out. So hats off to a fine looking young man there.
Yeah, and for sure the confidence and the abandon that he puts into the performance is also attracting.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
One more thing that just occurs to me with the lyrics, the line "taste all the waste." Is this more coprophagia like in Fell Destroyed?
I'd have to think about that. I don't know. I'm trying to. Fell Destroyed. That's off End Hits, right? I'm trying to remember exactly how that song goes off the top of my head.
It's just that he drops the word coprophagic in there, and
okay.
And because I already sort of saw them as parallel songs, so that line sort of jumps out to me in this one too.
Well, I guarantee you I'm going to check that out once we're done here for sure. Yeah.
If you don't want to say anything else in particular, I'll go to social media. Did you have any last notes on the song?
No, but I think on the album itself, just where this sits in it. It's a great denouement. So this would be the third Fugazi release I heard, and the opening, Facets Squared, I was a little bit alarmed by it because it's probably, aside from like the beeping and the build, but when the riff kicks in, and particularly when the whole band kicks in, it's just ferocious. But not only that, but Ian sings in the lower register.
Right.
And it's I was like, well, I don't know what this is. And it seems very low in the mix. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to like this record. But then, by the time of that song, the break in the middle, they're holding the chords on the 2 and the 4, touched, and he screams, touch the ground. I'm like, I'm in. And, and it's great because it starts with that 1-2 punch of Facets Squared and Public Witness Program, and then ends with the Instrument and Last Chance for a Slow Dance. And it's just such a great sequencing, I guess, is what I'm looking for. The whole album is sequenced so well.
It's really an album that wakes you up and then puts you to bed.
Yeah.
I agree. They that was just one aspect of their genius, I would say. That they had some very well sequenced albums.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, cool. Let me throw it to some of our friends on social media for their comments on the song. John Rash says, that guitar hook is hypnotic and menacing like a snake charmer. I like that little... Yeah, it does have some kind of like Eastern tonality to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good take, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good point, yeah.
What's the scale that's supposed to be like Egyptian feeling? Is that like melodic minor? I'm not. I don't know my theory that well.
Maybe is it Phrygian? The
Oh,
pH? I don't know.
Yeah, the mode.
Phrygian modes?
I don't know. My ignorance is being exposed right now. Moving on.
Yeah.
Sam Noble says, it took me years to actually realize that what Ian and Joe are playing in the outro part is actually what they're playing the whole way through on the verses. That's exactly what you said,
okay. Doug. Yes, that's what I said, yeah.
And he says, I don't know how I didn't pick up on it, maybe because the spotlight is on Guy, so much for that song. Alan Newman says, it's a good closer, but my least favorite song. I feel like I should elaborate. It's a soulful song, probably the most on the album, and the Fugazi closers have a lot of soul. It's probably one of the best Guy songs, but I love Killtaker, and after the second half of that album, it feels like a downer, like a song that should have built and had a more energetic payoff, like KYEO, would be more fitting on Killtaker, and vice versa. Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Valid take.
Yeah.
Daniel Pils, he's got an umlaut over the A in his last name, so I don't know what to do with that. Daniel Pilsater. I know they keep saying that vocals always come last, but listening to this song now, I have such a hard time imagining that you'd write a song like this without vocals in mind. I like it a lot. And as we said, it's clear that he sort of was working on the lyrics as they played it. So. Yeah, but I think you're right, Daniel, in that he almost certainly had a vocal melody in mind and some ideas at least before they started, forming this really.
Well, this seems like one that he probably brought in, and it wasn't just a spontaneous jam.
It's one that I really enjoy imagining how they came up with it. Like, you'd think he's like, hey, all I have is this sort of circular guitar thing and a vocal melody, and they sort of figure out something to do under it that turns out to be brilliant. That's how I imagine it. So that's just a sampling of the social media comments. But what do we think about Last Chance for a Slow Dance? Let's talk about ratings. Do you like me? Do you like me? Do you like me? And Doug, you've listened to the show, but for people who are just joining us now, we like to rate every song on this podcast on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, but only in the context of all Fugazi songs, from your least favorite to your most favorite. So what do you think, Doug? How does this one rate for you?
I've listened to a couple episodes of this, and this was the question I was dreading, and I don't know. It's hard to quantify it. In the grand scheme, it's a great song. I love it. And I think as I get older, it gets better to me. I probably would have felt the same way as the KYEO. Whoever said that about should have been KYEO type song ending. Mm-hmm. I would have felt that more that way at like 18. Not dissing him, but it's just grown in stature. Maybe a 4 out of 5. But like I said, given where it sits on the album, it almost elevates it. I believe, to like a 4.3, I guess. I don't know.
Big rating. I think for me, this is going to get a slot in my coveted 5-star tier. I really love it. There's something magical about it that I don't know is a rarity for Fugazi, is a rarity for any band. My favorite part about it is that very ending part where it's just Ian and Joe. And I just love it. It sounds so great, so moving, sad, romantic. I like the song as a whole, but that's the real magic of it to me.
Yeah, I agree. It's the vocal performance and that ending there, because that's what grabbed my ear. Like I said, was I had to go back. So I was like, wait a minute, what was that? And just the audacity to end a record. To be known as the band that they are, and just to end it with almost a lullaby.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me too of a common set closer for Fugazi was the instrumental Sweet and Low, and it's some people might see that as incongruous, but I don't know. Depending on the way they were feeling that night, they just like, okay, let's chill it down and end our show on a nice slow, sweet and low note.
Plus, I was just looking at the live series, their sets here, and they would play upwards of almost 30 songs a night.
Yeah.
So it's a nice thing to end with they usually put a quiet one somewhere in the middle just to give the ears a break, theirs and the audience's. And it just seems like, it's a nice way to end a set.
Yeah.
Rather than always being like, all right, this is our 10-minute jam for the finale.
This is our punishing feedback segment.
Yeah.
Big ratings for this song. Yeah, let's see if the upcoming string of Guy songs that we'll be doing in the next several weeks can possibly measure up to this. So, plugs. Doug McGregor, where can listeners reach you? Do you have any projects coming up that you want to plug?
Actually, I do have this band in Toronto here that I play with sometimes. We're called Lids, and it's featuring I played a band called Lids with a guy from Metz, Alex Edkins. He plays guitar and sings in Metz. Do you know them?
Yeah, METZ. METZ, sorry.
METZ, yeah, and yeah, I know.
I'm trying to make foreigners comfortable on my podcast here. I'll do anything I can.
Yeah, have you ever heard this band ZZ Top? They're great. But him and a guy from Holy Fuck, Brian Borchardt, and we just play together as we're just a trio. But we do have a 7-inch coming out for the Sub Pop Singles of the Month Club soon.
Wow, just like Fugazi.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I guess, yeah.
All right.
There we go, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked on that. They got apparently they're putting out John Waters in that series. So it's a subscription. So you can go to the website and you pay your subscription fee, and then you get one single a month for a year.
Awesome.
And ours is one of them, yeah. So we're probably going to set that up on a Bandcamp or something.
Right on. Thanks for joining me, Doug. For me, as usual, you can give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts or share it with friends or whatever. You can reach me at fugazi@gmail.com, and you can join the Facebook group, The Alphabetical Fugazi. And I don't think I've mentioned this before, but you could follow me on Instagram if you want. I don't really post Fugazi content, and I actually don't post that often in general, but feel free to follow me if you want. It's IanWright0101. Other than that, I hope you'll join me for the next episode when we will be discussing Latest Disgrace. Until then, keep your eyes open.